All right, operating limitations in the aircraft flight manual. Some fun, exciting things. Aircraft flight manual, POH, must be on board the aircraft basically all times we're operating it. Typically will include these sections, at least the King Air 90s have these sections within it. The general, the limitations, which we'll get to, emergency procedures, abnormal procedures, normal procedures, performance, weight and balance, systems, handling and servicing, supplemental, and any safety information. Two big ones are going to be the limitations and weight and balance. If any of those values are exceeded, then bad things can happen. Potential. So, getting to limitations, here's a lot of numbers and stuff that we're going to talk about, but these are our airspeed limitations for the C90B. So we got VMO 226, it's your barber pole, that fluctuates with altitude. Your maneuvering is 169, VFE talked about 184 for approach, 148 for full down. VLO, VLE are both 182. Your VLO for retract is 163. VMCA is 80 knots, we got a red line on the airspeed indicator. Stall, clean configuration is 88 knots. And your stall speed with landing configuration 78. VYSE, single engine, VY is 108. You got a blue line there. Engine operating limits, right out of the POH. We've got starting limits. Max observed for starting is 1090. Okay? And then we've got a little note that is limited to 2 seconds. But for starting, the ITT goes up to 1090, 2 seconds max, and then we got to shut down or stop to start. Oil temp must be at -40. It's low idle, high idle. These values are somewhat important, but takeoff and max continuous power, we'll get 550 horsepower. Torque max is 1315. Max ITT 695. Oil temp 10 to 99. And pressure, we want 80 to 100 here. Where is that one note? I guess they don't have it in here. They do have a recommendation that the oil temperature is at a minimum, I believe, of 50 for the takeoff. Is that right, or is it 55?
Number 3.
Oh, number 3. Yeah, okay. 55 degrees is recommended for fuel heater operation at takeoff power. So, cold days, quick taxi down, you might not get that. So, anyway, 1090, good number to remember. Generator limits. So, in flight, we can have 100% gen loads as long as we have a minimum N1 of 85%. On the ground, things get a little different, where if we have a 0 to 50% generator load, we have to have a minimum 59% N1. If anything above 50 to 80%, we have to have a minimum of 61%, and anywhere from 80 to 85, it's at 70% N1. Obviously, we use the condition numbers to increase that N1 if needed. Fuel limitation, we use Jet A. It says we can use fuel aviation grades in an emergency. Operation is limited to 150 hours between engine overhauls. It's also limited to 8,000 feet or below with boost pumps and up. Cross-feed capability is required for climbs above 8,000. All of those all those limitations have to be watched. Anti-icing and biocide additives can be used, but we have to refer to the POH and the maintenance manual. POH really doesn't say much about the percentages, so, but that's the things we need to refer to. If we have a left fuel pressure or right fuel pressure illuminated, enunciator illuminated, basically that's a boost pump failure, and we verify it's a pump failure. The operation is limited to 10 hours before an overhaul or replacement of the engine-driven fuel pump. And the boost pumps must be operational prior to takeoff. So back up to this guy, if you have a pump failure, you can't land, drop somebody off, hop back in the plane and take off again, because they have to be both operational prior to your takeoff. Total usable, we have 384 gallons, which equates to 2573 pounds. Each side we have 192 gallons, or 1,286 and a half pounds. Each wing tank carries 131 gallons. Nacelle tank carries 61 gallons. Full fuel, if we needed to get that, we'd fill the nacelle first, then our wing tanks. Steve kind of mentioned that a little bit. Max imbalance is 200 pounds, a lot less than the 1,000 pounds for the 250, but that needs to be observed as well. Cross feed is permitted only in the event of a boost pump failure or an engine failure. Both of these are automatic. We really don't do much about it. We do have the option to manually override stuff, but typically it's all automatic. Don't take off, or we can't take off with the fuel gauges in the yellow arc, which is below or less than 265 pounds in each wing. And that's obviously the yellow arc is on the fuel gauges themselves. Power plant instrument markings. Okay, we've got ITT, green 400 to 695. 695 is a red line, but we also have another red line or a red diamond, depending on the model year or production line, at 1090. Torque 0 to 1315 is green, red line at 1315. TAC, we have normal 1100 to 22, red line at 22. Generators, our generator tax, your N1, 58 to 101.5, and then 101.5, you got your red arc. Oil temp, 0 to 99 is the green. Oil temp is 80 to 100 PSI. And then we've got the red line, or red diamond at 200 PSI as well as the 100 PSI. Weight, a little bit different. Steve had the 90As, but 10 160s are max ramp, takeoff 10-1, max landing 96. We have no limitation on zero fuel. Rear baggage is 350 as well as the nose avionics bay. But, both of these, this rear baggage, this pound limit, weight limit, would include a passenger if he's sitting back there, he or she. As well as the nose avionics bay, that includes not just baggage but also all the stuff in the nose compartment, nose avionics bay.
Plus a person if you shovel off.
Yeah, plus person, yeah. You gotta stay low enough for that.
Yeah.
Icing limitations. We have a minimum speed of 140 knots. Minimum temperature operation for our de-ice boots is minus 40 degrees Celsius. That's really, really cold, but there's a limitation. Engine anti-ice, if cannot assure free of visible moisture, anything from plus 5 degrees Celsius and lower, we need that engine anti-ice on. Sustained flight and icing with flaps extended is prohibited except for your approach and landing. They just will accumulate too much ice sticking out in the air like that. Landing gear limitations. Cycles are limited to 1 every 3 minutes for a total of 10 cycles, followed by a 15-minute cool down. I don't know why you would do that, but that's the limitation of it. And then some miscellaneous. Max operating altitude, 30,000 feet. Max outside air temp is plus 37. It looks like it's a negative, but it's a plus 37 degrees Celsius. Max cabin differential is a 5.1 psi. Max pneumatic pressure is 20 psi. Really, I guess, probably should have used commas or something other than the little dashes because it looks like. Anyway, external power limits. If we need that external power, it's got to be at 28 to 28.4 volts and be capable of a minimum of 1,000 amps momentarily and 300 amps continuously. And then we have our starter limits, 40 seconds on, 60 seconds off, 40 seconds on, 60 seconds off, 40 on, and then a cool down of 30 minutes. All right, do have a quiz. All right, if on the ground with gen load of 60%, what is the minimum N1?
I would just get that chart backwards.
Right. What's the maximum airspeed for approach flaps? The white triangle. What's the maximum ITT for starting? And it's limited to 2 seconds. Where in the aircraft manual, I forgot to tell you this. Where do you think in the aircraft manual would you find the correct tire pressure? PSI, sorry, should not do that. And what is the time limitation for an in-up boost pump? 5 hours before replacement, 10 hours before replacement or overall, 15 hours before, or 20 hours. So 5, 10, 15, or 20. Everett, 3. B.
The baby. Blah, blah, blah.